Since I won't be in class this week, I wanted to record a short video and give you a walkthrough of some expectations for next week, as well as a short discussion on scoring and the updates that you'll see there. So, there are a couple things I want you to focus on before next class. The first thing is to finish part 4 and 5 from Unit 1. Last week I asked you to complete through part 3, and that was the largest portion of this unit. So hopefully you made it through all of that and you're ready to continue working on 4 and 5. These are the last components of this unit. If you didn't quite finish part 3, well, get that wrapped up and then move on to part 4 and 5. The second thing I want you to work on between now and next week is sending me an email to confirm the time that you'd like to come in for your test on September 11th. Remember, it only needs to be a 90-minute block, and the lab teachers and administrators should be handing out permission slips or at least forms that your parents can sign, giving you the okay to leave after you're done with your test or to give you permission to come in late to class or late to school that day in order to take the test. I did send an email out yesterday about this, so if you look in your email inbox, you can just respond to that message I sent to you. Lastly, I want you to start on the test review packet that should be handed out in class today. There are copies set on my desk, and hopefully I have enough for everyone in both of my sections. This is a nice focused series of problems that are going to be real similar to what you'll see on the test next week. And this also gives you an opportunity to practice doing your work on paper in a pretty typical testing format. Most of our work so far has been done on the computer, and you've been writing, scrap work on a piece of paper or something like that. This time around, you have the problems in front of you, and you can do most of your work on that sheet of paper. If you don't get this finished, I'll understand since there is a lot of work to do online still. But if you bring in completed problems or those that were giving you trouble, we can talk about those in class on next Thursday. We'll have a Q&A session on Thursday to go over those problems. Now, I do have these notes written down on the dry erase board that's hanging on the front window in my room. I also added these to a calendar that's hanging on the front board as well. So as you're in the classroom, you can look at those and take a picture of either the calendar or the dry erase window, and that way you'd have a record of what we covered. Or, of course, you could copy them from this screen right now. Second thing I wanted to talk about was scoring. As you log into Schoology, you should see updated scores popping up on your screen. And while this score on the top here in this row does represent your grade for the semester so far, or the quarter so far, what I do need to stress is that the scores for this class are cumulative. And so here we are 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the school year, sitting at a 33% might seem pretty bad. And in most normal classes, it would be. However, since we're scoring everything on a cumulative scale, remember that this is a number that should always be increasing. It's always going to go up with the more work that you complete. And just today at 10 in the morning, I ran a report and updated a lot of scores. So there are going to be many of you that have a much better score on your screen than this. Now, some things to keep in mind with the cumulative scores is they will always go up and they should never go down because you're always going to be completing more work as the unit progresses. By the end of the unit, your minimum score should be a 60% because that's a passing grade. However, I would recommend that you shoot for a 70% minimum. The reason for that is that a 70% C will allow you to move on to your next level math class at the college level. If you finish with a 60%, that's a D, and yes, you'll earn credit for it, but if you earn a D in this college algebra class, you won't be permitted to move on to the next level, trigonometry, and certainly would not be able to move on to calculus next year without improving this score. Now, your maximum score, because of the cumulative scoring process, is of course a 100%, and that would indicate full completion of all Khan Academy assignments and full completion of all Math Excel. Now, there is an extra Math Excel assignment out there, that test review that was made optional. If you complete that, I'll consider adding extra credit points. So it is entirely possible to score higher than 100%. Additionally, if you complete more assignments on the Khan Academy website than what I've assigned, then there's a possibility for 100% plus as well. We'll just have to see what that looks like as more of us get closer to the end of the unit. So back to the sample scoring right now, if this 33% is the grade that you had last week, I probably wouldn't be too concerned. We were only 3 weeks into a 5 or 6 week long unit. But now we're getting into close to the end. We're getting pretty close to the last week of work of this unit. And so I would hope that your scores here are closer to the 50% range. If you're at 50 or better, then that's a pretty good indicator that by the end of next week, when you have all of your coursework finished, you're going to be at that 70% or greater range. There are 2 scores in this formative group. Don't pay too much attention to these. These were just housekeeping assignments that we had to do at the beginning of the semester, and they don't really affect your overall grade. Some of you are still seeing a 0 on the CCP application, even though you've sent me a confirmation email. I'm still waiting on Cincinnati State for the official word. However, if you did send me an email and it's bothering you to see a 0, send me another one letting me know that you would like to have that updated, and I'll go ahead and do so. But until I get the final word from Cincinnati State about our enrollment, I was holding off on these application scores. Last week when I updated the Khan Academy scores, I did not have all video scores accounted for. So we only had, I think, 108 points available last week. With this week's update, I did find a way to capture all of the video scores. So now we're seeing a total out of 476, like I'd originally anticipated, something closer to 500. And consequently, I think many of you are going to see a pretty big jump here. So instead of 50 points, you might be at 250 points or 300 points. And that, of course, is going to affect this percentage score. With Math Excel, no changes there. We have 4 assignments worth 100 points apiece. When I add the percentages together, that's where this 225 or whatever number you have, that's where that comes into play. So if you think something's not reporting correctly either on Math Excel or at Khan Academy, then you can email me questions about these percentage scores. Otherwise, I hope this description is helpful enough. Next Friday, when we take our test, the test is going to be scored out of 130 points. So you'll end up with some score out of 130, and that's going to turn into a percentage score that I report in the gradebook, and that will be weighted accordingly to affect your overall grade when compared to your homework scores. I'm going to record a second video to talk a little bit more about the test review and the layout of our test for next week. So make sure you check that one out, and hopefully that'll clarify any concerns that you have on your test review and what to start preparing for before you take the test next week. Thanks.